really quick as like a quick little rundown of this. So one of the things that I talk about a lot and that Taylor talked about in the podcast episode we did was the entire concept of moving a shape or a chord or a voicing, kind of whatever you want to call it, this grouping of notes in a specific order according to a specific scale. So if you have, this F minor 11, the scale that corresponds here would be F Dorian, right? What we're literally doing is we're taking these notes and we are moving them just to the next note in the scale at all times. So we're only hitting these notes, right? That's it. And so if I wanted to practice this, what I might do is take just the right hand shape first. And make sure I can get that. And I think the big point here is I'm not trying to learn every single one of these voicings, like I'm going to write every single one down and then I'm going to do this same thing with each and every voicing. What I'm doing is I'm basically just learning one voicing. That's it, just the one we started with. That's all that really matters. The rest is just other shapes that we know are going to work with F minor and we know are going to give us places to go. So it's basically getting more out of the voicing. So as opposed to just being like, well, here's my F minor voicing, that's it. If I'm playing like an F minor in a ballad, now I know I can go. And suddenly it's like, whoa, what was all that stuff? What was all those pretty voicings? How did Noah learn all those voicings? Oh my God, it must have taken years. He must know 10,000 voicings that he, practiced in every key. Well, it's like, no, it's just shapes. So you could potentially use this somewhat randomly just in the key of F Dorian, let's say, in that tonality, and just move around the shapes. And if that's all you need to accomplish, that's great. But also, what if you have a melody that's in F minor? You have a very specific strategic application where you can actually take some chords and do it. If our melody is, so I'm gonna go, so. It's a strange one to land on there, potentially, but if you're doing an arrangement, maybe you change it, right? You change that one chord. And just kind of land there. So it also gives you this great way of harmonizing melodies as well. And if you imagine like a group of saxophones, if they're all playing like the inner melodies of those chords, then using this diatonic movement of the shapes can be really, really useful for that as well. So there are it's great for if you just need to fill space, but it's also really, really great if you want your hands to go to some nice shapes for specific melody notes. And that's another big part of it, is if you are training your hands on these shapes that fundamentally begin with a strong, good sounding voicing, then more times than not, you're going to put your hands down, and even if you have a different note on top, they're going to land in a position that gives you a nice strong voicing without too many repeated notes, and that's really the concept, I would say. Hey there from my home studio. I just wanted to let you know really quick that this video you're watching right now was actually cut from a live stream. You can actually participate in these live streams. They're done on Zoom. Make sure to click the link in the description of this video and join our Discord community server. We are hanging out there all the time. We're doing free events like this where you can learn completely free, and it's really, really fun, really, really valuable. So if you're interested in just being a part of this amazing community and also having the chance to interact with us and interact with other students completely for free, please be sure to click the link in the description and join the Zoom party there. All right, maybe I'll see you at one of the streams. I want to turn things to Matt.
I'd love to piggyback on that just real quickly, just for a minute here. I worked a lot on this too with a great Portland piano teacher, Randy Porter. Incredible player. This approach is interesting because, some of the chords reflect F minor more than others. And so, it does, like Like that voicing is not very F minor-y per se. We have the 9, the 13, the 3, 11. So there's more extensions in there. So it depends also on how long the chord is. If it's a modal tune, meaning we have this like maybe 4 to 8 bars, you know, of F, you know, like So What or like a McCoy-Tyner sort of thing. You know, you can pull all these different shapes out of there, which is great. But if you just have, you know, like a 2-5-1, you know, F minor to B flat 7 to E, right? You're probably not going to go to something like that per se. So, you know, it does depend on the context if it's more of a modal, sort of stretched out harmony. I think the context for this kind of playing for me, and again, you know, this can be fairly subjective, because people can play standards and play them really out of left field and not reflecting the changes. Did you ever hear how Herbie got this thing from Miles, and Miles said, "Hey Herbie, don't play the butter notes," right? Turns out he actually said bottom notes. It achieved the same effect. And bottom notes meaning like, okay, here's an F minor 7, let's make it an 11, let's be a Bill Evans, let's make it a 13, right? So the butter notes, the way that Herbie interpreted that was, well, always we need the root, 3rd, and 7th. Those are the most defining notes. The 5th is really optional. Doesn't really add too much. The butter notes would be, you know, so your bread and butter down here. But if you play some of those extensions up here, right? Wow, we actually technically have an E flat major, but it's an F minor in the root. So that would be, you know, playing, you could even play a standard this way. Maybe this is your F minor voicing, you know, there. It's diatonic to F Dorian, but it is not giving us the butter notes. So let's say we did a 2-5-1 in E flat major. You could take this, for example, take the butter notes out. For example, you could play some, you know, sort of different voicing for F minor. Now let me try to voice lead this in a way that will give us a little bit more of the change. Let's at least change one note to take us to B flat, maybe 2 notes. You could keep this shape up here and go down to the 3rd and the 7th of B flat. I really like this cluster, so I could, you know, keep that here. You could voice lead this so many different ways, but here's one possible voice leading. These notes resolve down. Interesting. Now we're here. Now let's see if I play the shape over E flat. Okay, that's pretty unfinished. What do we need to resolve? We need to probably resolve this down to be the 3rd. So let's give a few more butter notes. Once we get to the 1 chord, maybe we want, you know, more of the butter notes in there, so to speak. 3rd, 7th, 9th, doubling the 3rd. We could move that up maybe. Now we're, you know, kind of going outside the key of E flat a little bit. So if you can voice lead it well and give us enough motion to show, even if we had no roots, we still feel some voice leading and resolution, I think it can work with this more, like that's a pretty, you know, unusual voicing for an F minor 7 because there's no 3rd. We can hear, really, there's voice leading happening in the left hand. Right? That would be one way to do it on a more, what we might say, more functional harmony rather than these long sections of just modal F minor.